don't race Ferraris anymore. I crashed at 200 miles an hour at Daytona Speedway and broke a bunch of ribs and looked at myself in the mirror and said, yeah, this is pretty dangerous. I probably shouldn't do this anymore. And that just belies the fact that I'm actually not that good. I was pretty good, but not that good. Well, thanks
Don't
for
you?
having me, guys. I'm super excited. I
Oh
love
Thanks
yeah.
for coming
Success
on.
Magazine. I love Success Magazine.
We love to hear that. We love it too. And we love you.
Yeah.
So glad that you could join us today.
Absolutely. Don't you actually have in your office or your home, don't you have some pieces of the crashed Ferrari as that you turned into like a piece or a statement piece?
Yeah, one of the interesting things, I mean, I'm okay at a lot of things, but I'm great at business. And so my overarching theme in everything I do is how does this apply to business? And the one thing I love about car racing is there's so many analogies to business. Like one of the things they teach you, and I'm joking, I actually was really good at it, but one of the first things they teach you in racing is when you're spinning and you're out of control, the car will go where you look.
Hmm.
And I know that sounds self-evident, but when you're spinning at 200 miles an hour next to a concrete wall, human nature is to look at the danger as opposed to the infield, which is the opportunity.
Huh.
And I always think about that in business and how many people, not just in business, but in their lives, look for the danger and try to avoid the danger instead of going to the opportunity. And I think subconsciously, very few of us are strong enough in life to pivot ourselves towards opportunity if our focus on everything that could go wrong every day. And so that's one of the things I really like about car racing and most things is, I think business is so hard and being successful is so hard that you have to constantly work on yourself. The greatest asset in life you always have, I think, is yourself. And I came from nothing, just like the other sharks, and I always remembered when you have nothing to sell or offer, first sell yourself.
Hmm.
And if you can't be successful and feel successful, you're never going to attract anybody else in the world, either in business or in relationships or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love that, Robert. And I think it's interesting because, as you describe it, you came from nothing, modern day Croatia, and your family comes across and to Canada. And I was looking through for like the through lines of your life. And it's like, what does scuba diving and investing and entrepreneurship and Ferraris all have in common? And it's like, you live in a world of risk and managing risk. And that's the thing that I was thinking about was going like, gosh, like you are, and then also, okay, so the cybersecurity, like your business that a lot of people, I don't think we talk enough about you guys have this
Gosh,
huge business that
you,
is cybersecurity. It's about helping people manage
you
risk.
you've just analyzed my life better than anybody ever has. Thank you for that. And you're really making me think. And you're right. I deal in a very, very risky world. I mean, my clients are being attacked by foreign nation states. I deal with a lot of very secret service, serious kind of stuff. And I also well, we recently sold a portion of our business for many, many hundreds of millions of dollars to a big equity firm in order to get the capital to grow. But prior to that, I owned 100% of the business. It was a
Wow.
$250 million business, which sounds romantic, but what that meant was everything was being paid out of my pocket.
Right.
And so huge amount of risk running a 250 million self-funded business. I I think I have a natural affinity to risk and constantly having to overcome it. And it's probably a little bit of the immigrant in me because I think my whole life people have always told me you can't do it, you're not qualified to do it, you don't have any experience. And so I just kind of want to jump in and do it. I also think I have a need to control things. And so I tend to look for cars, airplanes, sports where there's a great degree of self-discipline and control.
Yeah, I want to jump in on something that you said there about you not being qualified. You know, you weren't even you were born in what is modern day Croatia, so you didn't speak English, you didn't have any of that stuff. And one of my favorite stories about you, I guess, is that when you went for one of your early jobs, like you weren't even into computers, and that you applied for this company. I think it was called LogicQuest, and you weren't qualified. They weren't going to hire you. And is this a true story that you told them you would work for free for 6 months just so
It's
they would hire you?
it's a true story, and what a what a out there thing to do. And that wasn't me at the time. I mean, in my early 20s, I was definitely afraid of my own shadow. Like I was a super timid, shy kid. And that's one of the things that always pisses me off. People always come up to me and say, "Oh gosh, I wish I was born so I could speak and I could be as confident as you are." And I'm like, that's such a load of crap. That's just making an excuse for not putting enough discipline and time to do it. Because in my early 20s, I mean, forget talking to a girl, I couldn't talk to anybody in business. And so, how did I get better at it? I realized you need to portray a certain level of confidence in life. Otherwise, nobody will ever take you seriously. And I just kept doing it. And I always think I hate when people make excuses for something they can't naturally do.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I hear that, I always think you haven't had enough pain in your life. Because if you had enough pain in your life, you'll change. And I changed because my life was horrible. It wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't advancing. I wasn't successful. And I thought, I got to get out of this. And so how do I do it? I just got to keep doing it. And so yeah, I had one of those epiphany moments, and it was actually my roommate. He had a doctorate in computer science, and
Okay.
I couldn't pay my rent, and he applied for this job, and I could have cared less about computers. And I went in, I applied, and I've had this epiphany moment. Like, if I don't get this job, my life is over. I tend to be a little melodramatic in moments like that. So I was like, oh my God, my life is over. I'll never amount to anything. And I literally remember it so clearly. The guy was getting up, putting out his hand not to hire me. And I was like, you got to hire me. And he's like, no, no, no. And I don't know where it came from, but I said, I'll work for free. And he looked at me and he said, nah, if I hire you for free, I can't depend on you. And again, I looked at him and I said, oh no, sir, you can depend on me.
Wow.
And so we shook hands. I got the job. I walk out and I'm like, woohoo, I got the job. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm working for free. How am I going to pay my rent?
Yeah.
That was the whole point. So I left that interview, went to the fanciest restaurant in Toronto where I was living, and got a job as a waiter. So I worked in the computer business all day, waitered from like 6 until 2 in the morning, and woke up at 4 a.m. every day to learn about computers. And I've been in the computer business since I was 21 at the time. So I've been in the computer business and cybersecurity since I was 21. But yeah, it's a true story.
So I want to ask you a little bit about the risk, right? Because whether it's a job and you go, "Ooh, I'm going to offer to work for 6 months for free," that's a risk, right? Like, how am I going to pay my rent? Or on Shark Tank, people are pitching you stuff. That's a risk. When you're driving a Ferrari and you're going, should I hit the brake or should I actually press more on the gas pedal? That is risk. It's this constant like automatic calculation, and you have such a great track record of like making the right decision, and you go, I'm going to maintain control of my company for a while, but then it becomes a certain point where I'm going to sell part of it, so that I don't have all the risk. So when you're looking at, let's just use investing if we can start there with, because every, Shark Tank is a friend. By the way, also joining Dancing with the Stars had to feel pretty
Yeah.
pretty friggin' risky.
That was the risk. People always say to me, "Oh, you've raced cars, you've jumped off cliffs, blah blah blah. What was the riskiest thing you've ever done?" I'm like, "Oh, Dancing with the Stars." Like there is nothing that comes close to that.
And
But
and out of that, if I understand, comes a wife and two twin babies from as a result of that
exactly,
chance.
exactly. And you know why I did Dancing with the Stars? Because I was so miserable and it was such a low point in my life. Even my own team said to me, "You got to do something because you have become a miserable, boring human being." And so, I think people have a very funky relationship with risk. They think life is about avoiding risk, whereas reality is everything's risky. I mean, every day we face risk. I mean, you're driving down the road in a two-lane street, there's somebody coming the other way. There's nothing that blocks them from coming into your lane. It's risky. I mean, walking the street, figure out what in life is more important to you. Is it the pain of doing something or the loss of not doing it? And so for me, I never sit down and look at it and say, "Oh, this is risky, this is not." I tend to look at it and say, if I don't get better at this, am I okay with staying where I am? And I'm usually not, because I've usually been in a state of pain that really hurts. And hurt is not great. And I want to get out of it. And I think that's the thing you learn. I think I've learned over time is you are in absolute control over your own destiny. There is nothing that you cannot do if you're willing to pay that price.
I love that. And I think, you apply it to yourself. It's like, that's, it's one thing to do that for yourself too, and go, okay, I need to take a chance because risky is risk. Even choosing the safe route is risky, which is like part of what I'm hearing you say, going like, if I stay where I am, doing nothing is also risky. When it comes to the companies that you invest in, it's a little different because you have less control, right? You're putting money into both an idea and into a person or a group of people. Do you assess risk the same way there, or is it different in how you think about it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm much more of an operator than I am an investor.
Uh,
And I've had to learn that skill set because when you invest, you have limited control because I'm not going to go in and fix it. Now, I'm very fortunate that I have enough money to be able to soften the blow of any of those mistakes.
yeah.
So my main driver is I want to invest in people that I believe in and that are going to be good custodians of the business. Because I always believe, like, my big saying about my business is I love my customers, I love my employees, I love myself, I love my family, but man, I really love my business. And my business is like a child. When it needs to eat, it needs to eat. It doesn't care what I'm doing. It doesn't care where I'm going. It doesn't care if I have a dinner. You need to feed it. And I always look for an entrepreneur that's going to treat the business with that level of respect. Now, to your earlier point, I don't expect an entrepreneur to do that for a lifetime because that's not sustainable. Because
Right.
if that's how you live, you're going to lose your family, you're going to lose your friends, you're going to lose everything. So every business is an asset that you have to appreciate value in order to get to that leverage point. Whether it's an IPO, whether it's selling the business, something. So those are the two things I look for. Somebody that's going to be a good custodian of the business and, by virtue of my money, and then somebody that's thinking value. Where am I
Mm-hmm.
going with this business? Who am I going to sell it to? How am I going to create consistent value?
Yeah, it makes me think of too, like I love the metaphor of the business is like a baby. When it's an infant, you know, it needs your constant attention. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. I'm actually
Ah,
flying. I'm at a big leadership event in Chicago today, and I'm having to fly home because I got 6 really sick kids at home. And but the business, if you nurture it and you tend to it when it's young, it's kind of like with kids. It should grow up to be able to function without you. A mature, successfully run business, it feels like is this that good metaphor, because then it starts to
yeah,
grow and be less dependent on you.
I agree with you wholeheartedly with one caveat. You've got to make sure that the macro factors are in your favor.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is, while a great operator can make a business in any field successful, why swim upstream?
Yeah.
So, cybersecurity has always been a good thing to be in. And so we've done well. Now, it's a fantastic thing to be in right now, but it's always been good. And I always encourage people, when you're starting a business, get into something that on a macro level is growing anyway, right? Like, you want to be in a field that's growing 10%, 20%. And this is the best time in history to start a business because you can do it all online.
Yeah. I love that. I want to toss it to Madison for a second. So Madison's my co-host here. She represents kind of the voice of success, the readers. Also, you know,
Does Madison speak? I
she
thought
I
she.
does.
speak.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. She's
Madison.
she's real. I thought she was just a gift.
Madison? What are you curious about? What do you think the readers are wanting to know? What do you think is on your mind about risk, or anything Robert's talking about here?
Yeah, so earlier in the interview when you were talking, you mentioned what it was like to be in your 20s and lacking that confidence to really move forward and take risk in your career. And it took a shift in mindset, right, to take those next steps. But I guess what I'm wondering is, the pain that you're talking about, a lot of people don't understand how they can use that pain to propel them forward, right? They kind of let it push them down. So what is your
Right.
suggestions to shifting
Gosh,
that mindset?
gosh, that's a great question, Madison. It's a really good question, and I'm going to give you the right answer, but
Okay.
my caveat is I didn't know this answer. I
Mm.
failed miserably. When people try to change their mindset, human nature is we want immediate effect. So we want to go from white to black, or black to white, and we want to go from no confidence to all the confidence in the world overnight.
Mhm.
And it just doesn't work. And I tried that. I'd have no confidence. I said, well, you know what? I'm going to go to a speaking event. And I did, and it did the opposite. It made me feel even worse about myself because it highlighted how bad I was. And so what I learned, and I took this from running. I've been running my whole life, and I'm not a great runner, and I get tired like every day. And I have this saying, and I forget who said it to me. They said, it's more important that you execute every day than you go long distance. And
Mm.
what they meant was, some days you're fast and you're going to run like the wind. Other days you don't feel like running. So if you can't run, walk. And if you can't walk, you know, jog. And if you can't jog, crawl. And I started applying that to speaking. I didn't look for big outcomes. I just tried little things, like little moments. And it's not sexy and it's not exciting because we want immediate results. And, there's another great saying, I forget who told me, but we always overestimate what we can achieve in a year and underestimate what we can achieve in 10.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody listening to this can have my life times 10 years from now, if you're willing to put the work in. But most people say, in 1 year, I'm going to be highly confident. I'm going to change jobs. I'm going to make $1 million. It just doesn't work that way. So that's it. It just constant forward momentum. It is better to move forward than stay still, even if it's an inch at a time.
I love how you describe, constant forward momentum, and there's like this delay between when the work goes in, when the hustle, the fight, the grind goes in, and then like when the result shows up. Madison, you're probably too young to know this, but I bet Robert has seen a slinky. It
Yes.
reminds me of a slinky.
I
Like,
had a slinky.
no, you probably didn't. You're
Yeah.
so young. But you know what a slinky is? I haven't
Of
seen one in
course.
years.
Of course.
Okay.
But I think it goes back to, why are most people not successful? And it's because you do the work in the dark to see the results later on.
Mm.
So you want to be successful in the light of day, you better be putting in the work at night. And I think that's really hard. And I know I'm making it sound really easy, but I think everybody on this call, including me, have had those moments of doubt and insecurity where you can't see the future and you don't think you can go on, and it's really, really crappy. And I just think you gotta keep going.
Mm-hmm. It's very profound to hear somebody like you say that, Robert, because it helps us all believe that, and it helps us all to go, gosh, if we just keep doing it, like if you keep making these good decisions, it's like your life seems to almost be, it's a compounding of your choices. And just like compounding interest turns money into more money, when you make good choices and you put in the
Yes.
work effort, like that compounds and it grows into better results.
I'm like a cliche of sayings today, but it's so true. A mind once expanded can never go back to its original size.
Hmm.
Once you see the possibility, how can you go back? Once you see the future and you realize the things that you can achieve in life, you just can't go back. Nobody achieves great success and then says, yeah, I'm just going to retire and hang out now. Like it just never happens.
Mm-hmm.
Results are like addicting.
It's like a drug, a very good positive drug,
Yeah.
but it's highly addictive. Well said.
I guess kind of last question here, Robert. I know you have really tight schedule. We want to honor the time, but I come back to this thing of risk, and that's just kind of what we see through your life. And if somebody's watching right now and they feel like this prompting, I should start this business, I should go after this dream, I should run a marathon, I should do like whatever the thing is, but they're really struggling to just get over that hump and just go, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to put the money on the line. I'm going to call Dancing with the Stars. I'm going to offer to work for free for 6 months. And they're in that moment of like reluctance. Like they feel that they should do it, but they're afraid they're afraid of the risk. What advice would you give them?
I think that everybody's going to have that sense of doubt, and everybody's going to have that level of uncertainty. So two things I would say is, the first one is, it's not an all or nothing. Never do anything in life that will kill you, because death is fatal. So, risk is not about standing on the edge of a cliff and jumping all in. It's small progressions. And I think my advice is always to everybody, and this applies to me too, and applies to Mark Cuban and Damon John, because we all talk about this. In the moment of doubt, go back to the why. Why am I doing this? And if it's truly important, you'll take the action. And if it's not, you won't. That's it. It's just as simple as that. If it's not important to you, you may do it for a day, you may train for the marathon 1 or 2 days, but you won't do it on a consistent basis. Like you just won't. Great success comes with great purpose. And great purpose is rarely financially driven. It's proving a point. It's taking care of your family. It's building a great business. It's something.
Yeah. Well, y'all, make sure you click up in that top left corner. Follow Robert if you're not already. Get his books, Driven, Will to Win. You don't have to be a shark. You're probably watching the show already. Robert, thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time.
guys. I
And
appreciate it very much. Thank you,
yeah,
Madison. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. This was such a
All right.
great live, and for people who missed it, we're going to be posting it in our feed.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
bye, everybody. All right, Madison.
All right.
All right. So, wow.
Wow.
That was epic.
I don't know what I feel right now. If I feel starstruck, motivated, all of the above. That was a really, really awesome conversation, Rory.
What do you think is going to stick with you the most out of that whole chat?
Honestly, when he said that you have to do the work in the dark to see success in the daytime, that was a really good analogy, because it's hard if you're not seeing the results to continue putting in the effort. And to hear him put it into words like that really made it all make sense. In order to see your success in the light, you have to work hard when things aren't happening right away and continue doing that. And eventually you'll see it all in the light. What about you?
Yeah, well, that's so good. There's a couple things. To what you were just saying, I think the thing for me is just going, even at his level, right? He's someone that's on international celebrity and national TV and, all this stuff, hundreds of millions of dollars, that the success principles for someone like him are the same as for, somebody like me, someone like us, like someone that it's just a bigger scale, but it's the same principles apply, the same, and you can have millions of dollars, and to hear him say, I was at a low point in my life, I wasn't super happy. Like, he'd already been on Shark Tank, he was already a celebrity, and he was going through a hard time, and still having to take risks. So I think that was really big.
And it was crazy, Rory, to hear him talk about where he was in his 20s, because a lot of the time you don't think of these really successful people as people, right? You're like, oh, they were born this way, they were born into money, they got lucky. And that's not the case. So to hear him talk about the pain and when he didn't have confidence, when he was in his 20s, and then to see what he turned himself into is just so inspiring. Because really, if we put in the work, we can all do it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then and the other thing that stuck with me was he was talking about the macro thing. I think that's a good lesson for entrepreneurs on more of the business side. It's just like, it's almost like no matter how cool your idea is, you kind of want to pay attention to the big trends of like what's going on, and try to I think of how this is like an old metaphor, but they say, like in the river of life, he even said you can go upstream, like you can try to like swim upstream, you can float, or you can just kind of like, glide and navigate as the waters as you go down, and make the best of the big current, and also like making good choices along the way. I was super inspiring. Like, I had no idea he was so inspirational.
So profound.
Yeah, really, really, really wonderful. So, anyways, you want to wrap us up and send us out? What should everybody know before next week?
Well, do I want to wrap us up, or will I? Because I will, but I don't want to. No, this was such a great live. And for those of you who are just now tuning in, or maybe you didn't catch the whole thing, we're going to be sharing this in our feeds so everybody can watch it and get the recap. And this was so awesome. Thanks for joining us today, Rory. And like we do every week, you can catch the Success Room here at 12:30 p.m. Central, right here on Instagram Live. And yeah, this is a great conversation, Rory. Thanks for making it happen.
You too, Madison. Thanks, y'all. We'll see you next Thursday. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye.